officials were briefed, many for the first time today on this raid. And as we know, some lawmakers have a lot of questions. President Trump plans to meet with oil executives on Friday to discuss new opportunities and ventures in Venezuela. So I'd like to let you listen in. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt held her first briefing of the new year. She talked about new dietary guidelines for the United States public, which we're going to get into later here in our hour. But what everyone really cared about and really wanted to know about, of course, was the unfolding situation in Venezuela. So I'd like to let you listen in onto the beginning of the question and answer with reporters.
Let me just be very clear. This is the first time that I've addressed Venezuela from the podium since being back and since the historic and incredibly successful military operation, law enforcement operation conducted by our United States military that you all saw and the world witnessed last week. The skill, the might of the United States military and our country under the leadership of this president is on full display to the rest of the world. And let's just set the record straight. There isn't another military in the world who could have pulled off this operation. There is not another president in the world or in our nation's history who had the courage to authorize such a mission. And I think the world has taken notice that America is truly back. With respect to Venezuela, the Trump administration, led by Secretary Rubio, the vice president, and the president's entire national security team, is in close correspondence with the interim authorities in Venezuela. We obviously have maximum leverage over the interim authorities in Venezuela right now, and the president has made it very clear that this is a country within the United States, the Western Hemisphere, close by the United States, that is no longer going to be sending illegal drugs to the United States of America. It's no longer going to be sending and trafficking illegal people and criminal cartels to kill American citizens as they have in the past. And the president is fully deploying his peace through strength foreign policy agenda. So we're continuing to be in close coordination with the interim authorities, and their decisions are going to continue to be dictated by the United States of America.
Just one follow-up, when you talk about that leverage there, has the Venezuelan government fully committed to turning over its oil to the United States indefinitely, and what happens if they do not?
Well, as you saw, the president announced last night, this was a deal. This was a deal made by the president and his team with the Venezuelan interim authorities. This will benefit both the American people and the Venezuelan people. And Secretary Wright and the Department of Energy are working with the interim authorities and also with the private oil industry to execute on this historic energy deal that's not only good for the United States, but it's also going to revive the prosperity, the safety, the security of both the United States and Venezuela as well. Ed.
Well, that is White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt speaking from the podium there at the White House briefing room for the first time this year. She went on to talk in depth more about Iran, Venezuela, and we'll continue to keep you updated as new updates come from that. The big question, everyone wondering, what is the future of Venezuela? She didn't fully answer everyone's questions, as you saw a reporter clarifying what she meant. But this is something we're going to continue to follow because a lot of people have questions of if Venezuela's the starting point, where do we go next? We know the president has intensified his push for the United States to acquire Greenland one way or another. So let's get into that and talk about it a little bit more, because after the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, Trump, the president, once again floated the idea of taking over this Danish territory, and he's refused to rule out military force. Denmark's prime minister has claimed any strike on Greenland would mean the end of the NATO alliance. But as we continue to look at this situation, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, hinted the United States is going to move to take over the territory sooner rather than later, claiming it's part of a long-term strategy to help NATO allies. Miller says, quote, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be a part of the United States, end quote. Now, Democrats on Capitol Hill have pushed back against this, as you might imagine, vowing to stop funding for any military operations aimed at acquiring Greenland. But America's NATO allies at this point are standing behind Denmark, saying the United States has no right to invade Danish territory, while also acknowledging America's role in European security. One thing that NATO leaders have said is that they must do everything to maintain a European and American alliance, and this difficult task is going to require goodwill on all sides. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, a Republican, did tell Fox News news today. He doesn't think U.S. military action is an option in Greenland. So definitely a story we're going to continue to keep you updated on. I see over 1,000 of you have joined us here on TikTok. So if you have questions about this story, I will try to answer them as they come in.